ever wondered how those really big societal problems, things like climate change or economic inequality, maybe public health crises, how they actually move from just being a conversation, something everyone talks about, to becoming actual concrete action?
Yeah, how does an idea turn into a new law? Or maybe a new government program?
Exactly. Or even a community initiative that genuinely impacts people's lives. It's definitely not a straight line, is it?
Not at all.
So today we're doing a deep dive into something really fundamental to that whole process, the public policy cycle.
Mhm.
Think of it like decoding the roadmap that governments, communities, even international bodies follow when they try to tackle these complex challenges.
It's how we get from, okay, this is a problem, to, right, this is what we're actually doing about it.
Exactly. And this isn't just like abstract theory for academics, is it?
No, no, not at all. It's really a practical framework. It helps you understand why certain policies pop up, how they actually get implemented, and maybe most importantly, whether they achieve the goals they set out to achieve. We're going to show you how a process that seems, well, pretty complex, often kind of chaotic, can actually be broken down into clear, essential steps. It helps make sense of how society tries to solve its biggest issues.
And why it's rarely simple.
Definitely not simple.
Okay, and to help us really distill these ideas, our source material uses a classic question format. It helps us nail down the core concepts and, maybe just as importantly, avoid some common misunderstandings.
Yeah, seeing the wrong answers can be really illuminating.
Okay, let's unpack this and start decoding.
Let's do it.
So let's start with the big picture. Our source makes a really interesting point right at the beginning. The whole idea of public policy itself, it's become a lot more complex and, let's face it, often more controversial over the last few decades, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It really has. The classic simpler models people used to talk about, often just like 3 stages they've definitely had to expand to capture all that growing complexity.
Makes sense.
And what's fascinating here is that the policy cycle isn't just some academic thing. It's a really crucial theoretical tool. It helps us bridge that huge gap between some vague societal problem and a concrete actual government response.
Right, the action part.
Yeah. And the most sort of consolidated modern thinking, the frameworks you'll see used most widely today, they really point to 5 core stages. That seemed to be the most robust and complete model we have now.
5 stages. Okay, that's a big jump from the classic 3. It suggests a much deeper understanding of the whole process now.
It does.
Now, before we actually reveal that definitive sequence, our source does something really clever. It highlights some common misconceptions first. And it's actually really helpful for you, listening, to see why certain ways of thinking about policy development aren't quite right. Understanding the errors often makes the correct way clearer, right?
Exactly. It underscores why being precise about these stages really matters.
Yeah.
It helps us ask what makes a policy cycle model actually effective, useful. We learn a lot by looking at the alternatives that kind of miss the mark.
Okay, so what are some of those pitfalls?
Well, for instance, some proposed cycles fall into the trap of what you could call redundancy and misplaced stages.
Redundancy, like saying the same thing twice.
Pretty much. Our source points out that many models unnecessarily duplicate terms, or they pull out concepts that are really already embedded inside other stages, like listing strategy as its own separate stage.
Okay, I could see that maybe.
But the real insight here is that strategy isn't some distinct phase you enter. It's more like the continuous decision-making engine within the formulation stage, constantly weighing costs, benefits, politics, feasibility.
Ah, so it's part of formulation, not separate from it.
Precisely. Pulling it out as its own step kind of obscures how complex policy design actually is. And similarly, sometimes you see both execution and implementation listed as separate stages.
They sound like the same thing.
They largely are in this context. They both refer to putting the policy into practice. So having both just creates unnecessary duplication, adds noise without adding clarity.
So the goal is to make sure each stage really serves a distinct critical purpose. Keep the model lean and efficient, not just adding extra words.
Exactly right. Then there's the opposite problem, oversimplification. Some models are just, well, too basic. They're incomplete, missing absolutely crucial steps.
Like what?
Imagine a cycle that includes, say, forming the agenda, deciding to implement, executing and monitoring, but completely leaves out formulation.
Wait, formulation, the part where you figure out what to do.
Yes. How can you decide to implement something if you haven't actually gone through the process of developing, debating, researching specific alternatives and solutions?
Huh. Yeah, that would be like knowing you have a flat tire, then just deciding to drive away without ever thinking about putting on the spare or, fixing the flat.
That's a perfect analogy. You need formulation to actually design the solution, to figure out what you're even trying to do.
Okay, got it.
And critically, these oversimplified models often completely miss evaluation too.
The part where you check if it worked.
Yes, which is vital for understanding if the policy actually achieved anything. You can't just implement and execute and then walk away without assessing the impact later on.
Makes total sense. So redundancy is bad, oversimplification is bad. Any other big errors?
There's one more major one our source highlights, and it calls it a grave error: the absolute omission of the agenda stage.
Omitting the agenda stage, but isn't that where it all starts?
Exactly. How can you possibly formulate a solution if the problem hasn't even been identified and, crucially, gained government attention in the first place?
Right.
Without a problem being recognized and put on the government's priority list, it's POTA, as our source puts it, the entire process just cannot begin. It's the absolute foundation for everything that follows.
And getting something onto the agenda isn't automatic, is it?
Oh, definitely not. Agenda setting itself is often a fierce political battle involving lobbyists, activists, media, public opinion. It's not just a simple, oh, look, a problem moment.
Wow. Okay, so the agenda stage is truly the gatekeeper for everything else. Without identifying the problem and getting it on the radar, you're just, trying to build a solution without a foundation. You don't even know what you're building it for.
Precisely. These misconceptions really highlight how careful you need to be when defining these stages. Precision matters.
Okay, so we've learned a lot from what doesn't work. How do these pieces finally fit together into a framework that is effective? This is where we bring it all together, right?
Yeah.
What's the correct sequence, the one that really captures how public policy unfolds?
Indeed. So the correct sequence, the one championed by respected authors like Michael Howlett and widely accepted in the modern literature, presents a clear, logical, and importantly, complete pathway.
Okay.
The 5 essential stages are agenda, formulation, execution, monitoring, and evaluation.
Agenda, formulation, execution, monitoring, evaluation. Okay,
Yeah.
5 steps.
Those are the 5. It's the most robust framework you'll generally encounter.
So with that framework in mind, let's trace this journey. Let's maybe use an example. Imagine our city is dealing with a growing problem of, say, urban plastic waste. Piles of it everywhere. Where do we begin according to this model?
We begin right at stage 1, agenda. This is absolutely critical and, as we said, often highly contested. It's the point where a specific problem, like our city's plastic waste, gets identified not just by a few people, but gains real public attention and, crucially, the government's attention.
So it has to make it onto their radar?
Exactly. It moves from just being chatter to entering the government's POTA, its official priority list. This stage is all about defining what needs fixing and why it's urgent enough for government action now.
So what might that look like for plastic waste?
Well, think of local citizen groups, maybe lobbying the city council, media reports showing pictures of overflowing landfills, maybe scientists presenting data on microplastics found in the local river. All these things push plastic waste onto the political agenda.
Got it. So once plastic waste has successfully elbowed its way onto that crowded government agenda, what happens next?
That leads us straight into stage 2, formulation. Okay, the problem is officially recognized. Now, the real intellectual heavy lifting and, frankly, the political wrangling begins.
This is where the ideas happen.
Yes, it's all about developing and analyzing different proposals to solve that specific problem, the plastic waste. You'd have policy analysts, experts, environmental groups, business associations, all weighing in, proposing different courses of action.
Like what kind of options for plastics?
Well, a task force might explore, say, an outright ban on single-use plastics, or maybe investing heavily in new, advanced recycling infrastructure, or perhaps launching a massive public education campaign about reducing consumption, or, more likely, some kind of combination of these.
And I bet there's debate there.
Oh, absolutely. Fierce debates, usually, about the economic impact of a ban, about public acceptance, the cost of new infrastructure, the long-term effectiveness of each option. This is where the ideas get debated, researched, shaped, refined, and often involves significant compromises to build enough support.
Okay, so after all that discussion, the planning, the debates, the compromises, it's finally time to actually do something, right?
Exactly. That brings us to stage 3, execution, or implementation. This is where the chosen policy, let's say they decided on a single-use plastic ban combined with better recycling, is actually put into practice.
Boots on the ground time.
Kind of, yeah. Resources get allocated, budgets are finalized, and the public managers and agencies involved start acting to carry out the plan. And it's rarely simple. It often involves a complex web of city departments, sanitation, commerce, education, maybe even private waste haulers, all needing to coordinate.
We're struggling to coordinate sometimes, I imagine.
That definitely happens. So for our plastic waste example, this is when the city council officially passes the ban ordinance, maybe new recycling bins start getting distributed to households, and those public awareness campaigns hit the buses and social media to explain the new rules.
It's the ideas becoming tangible actions.
Precisely. And remember, as we discussed earlier, execution and implementation are pretty much used interchangeably here.
Got it. So the plan's in motion, the plastic bags are disappearing from stores, new bins are out. But surely the process doesn't just stop there. Feels like something's missing.
You're absolutely right. What's fascinating and crucial is that it's not enough to just execute and then, hope for the best. That's why we have stage 4. Monitoring.
Monitoring. Okay, what does that involve?
This means continuously tracking the implementation itself to make sure everything is proceeding more or less as planned. It's about checking. Is the policy on track? Are the allocated resources being used correctly? Are the actions actually being carried out as intended by the different agencies?
So it's like keeping an eye on the process.
Exactly. It's not just a casual check-in. It involves collecting specific data. Maybe tracking budget expenditures for the new recycling program, counting the number of new bins actually delivered, measuring the reach of the ad campaigns, or even checking compliance rates from businesses regarding the ban.
Why is that so important?
It allows managers to spot problems early. Are things going off track? Is one department dropping the ball? It lets you make adjustments during the implementation phase rather than waiting until the very end to find out something went wrong. It's essential process oversight.
Okay, that makes sense. Keep it on the rails. And then finally, after all that, the big question. Did it actually work? Did the ban and the new recycling actually reduce plastic waste?
And that right there is stage 5, evaluation. This is the critical analysis of the final results and the impacts of the policy. The ultimate question is simple. Did it actually fix, or at least significantly improve, the problem it set out to address?
So for our plastic waste example,
the evaluation stage would assess things like, did the volume of plastic waste going to landfill significantly decrease? Did recycling rates actually increase? Were there any unintended consequences, like maybe a big jump in paper bag use? Or did it hurt small businesses disproportionately?
the unintended consequences bit is important.
Hugely important. Evaluation connects back to the bigger picture of accountability and effectiveness. Were the initial goals met? What were the effects? Both the ones we wanted and the ones we perhaps didn't see coming. And you can use different kinds of evaluation here, like process evaluation, looking at how it was implemented, versus outcome evaluation, focusing on the actual results achieved.
It really gives you the full picture.
Hopefully, yes.
So it's definitely not just a straight line from start to finish. Agenda, formulation, execution, monitoring, evaluation. But our source also pointed out something vital about this whole process, didn't it? Something that makes it really dynamic.
Indeed. It's crucial to understand the cycle isn't just a linear, one-and-done journey. It's profoundly iterative.
Iterative, meaning it loops back on itself.
Exactly. The evaluation stage, for instance, is rarely the true end. It often brings new insights, or it might identify new problems that were maybe even created by the policy itself, or perhaps it shows that aspects of the original problem weren't fully addressed.
Can you give an example with our plastic waste?
Sure. Let's say the evaluation of our plastic ban revealed a huge surge in people using those thicker, supposedly reusable plastic bags, but treating them as single-use anyway. Or maybe it found a big increase in non-recyclable coated paper containers.
Okay, a new problem.
Right. That new problem, or that revealed inadequacy of the first policy, then often re-enters the agenda stage. It gets identified, debated, and potentially restarts the entire cycle, maybe leading to formulating a policy about thicker bags or non-recyclable containers.
So the end feeds back into the beginning.
Precisely. And this iterative loop isn't just some neat academic concept, it's often a real political battleground. When evaluation shows a policy failed or created new issues, it immediately triggers new advocacy, new lobbying, new political fights to get those new issues back onto the government's agenda. It shows public policy as this living, breathing, adaptive system.
Constantly learning, adjusting.
And perpetually being contested and reshaped. It's never truly finished.
Wow, what a deep dive. Okay, so I think you, our listener, now have a really solid understanding of these 5 essential stages: agenda, formulation, execution, monitoring, and evaluation. It seems like the most widely accepted logical order. It gives us a clear and pretty powerful lens to view how governments and communities actually try step by step to solve our biggest challenges. It's definitely a journey, but now you know the critical checkpoints along the way.
And hopefully, this framework empowers you when you look at government actions or even big community initiatives around you. You can start to understand that whole journey from recognizing a problem to trying out a solution, and then, crucially, how that effort loops back to inform whatever comes next.
It helps dissect the complexity.
Exactly. It helps understand the immense effort and the politics involved in trying to shape our world through policy.
Okay, so for our final provocative thought for you to mull over, thinking about this iterative looping nature of the cycle, which public policy that's really big in the news right now do you think is currently in its evaluation phase?
Ooh, interesting question.
And following on from that, what new agenda items might be emerging right now as a direct result of that evaluation's findings? What's potentially pushing us into the next cycle of policymaking and public debate on that issue?